This is the Hope Not Note podcast,
where we answer your questions and share inspirational stories to fill your soul with hope.
Our mission is to empower hope to those who have been plagued by note.
I'm Dr. Dylan Caswell.
And I'm Brandy.
And we're here to bring you out of the note and into hope.
Welcome to the Hope Not Note podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you didn't know, we answer listener questions on every single podcast episode, which means that you can ask a question if you have one. Go over to our website, hopenotnope.org, and you can ask us a question there. We would love to feature it on future podcast episodes.
We can make it easy too.
Yeah?
Link in the show notes to answer that question. Less clicks, more job done, efficiency. More job done. Missed a word there. Efficient. So yeah, if you have a question, go to our show notes and ask us the question. And yeah, booyah. All right. This question was, I've been on a booyah kick the past few episodes. Maybe it's making a comeback. I like it.
I love it.
Yeah. Booyah.
Booyah. This question is from a listener named Easton, and he says, I'm looking to compete in a Hyrox competition later this year, and I was wondering if I need to specifically train for Hyrox or if my general fitness training that I'm already doing is sufficient.
Got it. Why don't we start with what is Hyrox?
Okay.
So I'll start with the name.
Okay.
And then if you want to describe kind of the events of it, and I'll set you up.
Okay. I will say I don't know all the specific parameters, but I'll do my best.
We can give a general overview of this. So you would think that Hyrox stands for something, and it doesn't really stand for anything.
Wait, time out. Yeah. It's spelled Hyrox for people who are listening. Right. If you're not familiar with it, it's not Hyrox like high rock climbing.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Right. Hyrox.
Yeah.
So there's two creators. It comes from Germany. Hamburg, Germany was actually the first place that a Hyrox event was held at. The one founder, I don't know too much about. I know the other one was a 3-time Olympic medalist, I think, as an ice hockey player. So anyway, I'm not sure why they wanted to create it, the heart behind it. I don't know that much, but I do know that the name came from them being out, having some drinks, and combining the word hybrid and rock star together into one.
Really?
So that's where the name Hyrox comes from. Now, within that, when we look at it as hybrid and rock star, we can start to see the potential of why it was created. So hybrid, as Brandy will tell you in a moment, the event is a hybrid event in the sense of it's running and lifting, but not in the sense of like Olympic lifting, but there are weights that need to be moved. So that's the hybrid part. I think the rock star part was so that anyone competing can feel like a rock star.
Aww.
Because the way that they do these events is that they do it in like a wave fashion. So I don't know the exact time, but it's like every 10 minutes, the next group is starting, which means that there could be a person that completes this in under an hour, and there can be a person that it takes them 2 hours to finish. But from the wave of starting, these two people could cross the finish line at the same time. So they get rid of the idea of being last, because you can't really tell who is last other than like time chip reading. But I think that was the rock star part, is that like no matter where you're at, that you can cross the finish line and be celebrated and feel like a rock star. And I will say, from the little knowledge that I have on it, is that like people cross the finish line and there's a DJ and they hit like a button and smoke comes up and everybody's cheering. So how do you not feel like a rock star when that happens? Now, we compare this to a friend that we were just talking to, who is a friar, and he does a lot of running events. And he was saying in his last marathon, when he crossed the finish line was already picked up. Like, it was gone.
Yeah.
There's no finish line.
They went home.
All they had left was the medal at the end of it. And he's like, they were gone. And so I think in events, and I don't know if this is why they created it, but I know in some events, it's like if this person takes a while, like an Ironman or marathon, that like if you're the last competitor, you feel like the last competitor because there's nobody else
Yeah.
around. Where I think Hyrox tries to mitigate that by doing different waves so that people don't really know uh, who finished where. They just know that, wow, this person finished at this time.
Hmm.
So that's Hybrid and Rockstar, and they were out drinking and combined them together into this idea of High Rocks.
I love it.
So,
So
yeah.
I'll explain what the movements are. Basically, it's eight different movements with running as well. So I believe you start off running. Yeah, you do. So you start off running and you run a 1K, which is 1,000 meters. So a little over a half mile.
So before we were talking about how much is a kilometer, and
Yeah.
we're trying to do it in mileage, and we realized that a kilometer is 1,000 meters,
Yeah.
which makes it way easier in your brain to convert of like, well, we know that 1,600 or 1,600 meters is a mile. So then you
Mhm.
can kind of work from there to get an idea of what the distance
Yes.
is if you are American.
Yes. So it's a 1K or 1,000 meters, and then it goes into a movement. Then it goes back to that same amount of running, and then a new movement. So this happens 8 times. So running, and then the first is a ski erg. I don't remember all the like specific amount of ski ergs, but it's a ski erg, a sled push, a sled pull, burpee broad jumps, which if you've never done those, it's basically you do a burpee when your feet come up, then you jump out forward, and then you do a burpee. So those are kind of fun. After that, it's rowing, farmer carry, sandbag lunges, and then you finish with wall balls. After you finish the wall balls, you get to go and be celebrated and cross the finish line like Dylan just shared. So in between each of those movements, which some of them include weights, not all of them include weights, after each of those, you go back to the running. So you're running 8,000 meters total,
Mhm.
as well as doing this. Now, the cool thing about Hyrox is that you can compete as an individual, you can compete as a co-ed to like duo team, you can compete as a same gender team, as far as I'm aware. And so it's kind of cool because it's like Dylan and I could compete on a team. I could go compete with one of my friends who's a female, or I could just compete by myself, which I think that's a really cool aspect of it because then if you're competing with a team, you get to break. I think you have to run the 1,000 meters, like both of you have to, but the rest of it, you get to break it up. So like Dylan could do all the wall balls at the end, and I won't have to.
Perfect. Perfect.
If we were to do one.
Yes, yeah, beautiful background of it from what we know. Again, it's like not an area that we're in,
Hmm.
so we can definitely answer this question though. But Hyrox is not something that we have competed in. It's something
Yeah.
that we're aware of,
Hmm.
and it is the fastest growing fitness competition
Hmm.
in the world
Wow.
from 2017 until now. I think part of it is that they're really good with community. Like anyone can do it, and they welcome everybody to do
Hmm.
it. The way that they have it set up, it's high energy. Also, to get into the answer for Easton is that you know exactly what you're doing every time that you show up for one of these events. It never changes. The weights are the same. The mileage or the kilometers that you're running is the same. The calories are the same on the ski erg and the row. The amount of burpee broad jumps that you have to do, the distance you have to cover, the farmer carry with, it's always the same.
Hmm.
Also, I've seen like the wall balls, in some other types of like competitive fitness sports, there's like the standard.
Hmm.
Like, gotta get below 90 and you have to hit full extension at that. From the videos I've seen, I don't think there's a standard for the wall balls and high
Hmm.
rocks. I've seen like ball on the side of the shoulder, tossing it up and like not efficient, but a way that the job
Gets
got done.
done.
Burpee broad jump, I think there are some rules of like where you have to be
Your hands
the hands
and
with the lines and
yeah.
stuff like that. But the movements are always the same. And so we're seeing Hyrox explode. Like more and more people are doing this. I think their biggest one had like 8,000 participants
Oh my gosh.
in one competition and is continuing to grow and grow. So if you have not heard of Hyrox yet, you will hear about it at some point
This is you
because
hearing about it.
it's
Yeah.
growing. And so Easton hopefully already knows all the events and what he signed up for. I'm sure some people don't. They're just like, yeah, whatever, I'm fit, I can go and do that. But to answer Easton's question of is my general training sufficient or do I need to specifically train for this competition, you need to specifically train for it.
Mm-hmm.
It is a long-standing principle in strength and conditioning called specificity, or the SAID principle, specific adaptation to imposed demands. Your general level of fitness is helpful. Like we call that your general physical preparedness. Your general level of fitness is helpful and it's needed. But as you start to get closer to the competition, you almost have to imagine a funnel of getting more specific to what that competition is going to be testing you on. There's a lot of examples that we could go into this, but I think generally let's start with like, this is what we do with all of our athletes. Like when you're in the off season, you then move into just general physical preparedness. You're hitting general movements. You're squatting, you're deadlifting, you're lunging, working on whatever your limiting factors are. You're getting these generally strong. As the season starts to get closer and closer, well, now we start to kind of zoom in a little bit further to what you specifically need for that season. And in that, that's going to take the precedent over just general levels of fitness. So general levels of fitness are helpful, but for you to go compete in this, you got to specifically train for it, right? Because like, let's say that you're a good runner, like you come from a running background, you're able to run the 8,000 meters or whatever,
8K.
8K,
Yeah.
whatever it is, but you've never done that with stopping and going with a movement implement in between it. And that is a lot different than running a steady state 8,000 meter or 8K and then doing an 8K, but every 1,000 you have to stop and do a broad jump or carry weights or do wall balls or row or ski or whatever else is in there, sled push, sled pull. That is a different animal. Like doing a sled push on its own and a sled pull and then having to run after that, if you haven't experienced that feeling before, like you may have a baseline of conditioning, but if you haven't experienced that fatigue happening, it's for lack of a better term, it's going to slap you in the face.
Yeah.
So I always tell our athletes, hey, it's much better to get slapped in the face in training than when you do than having that happen at the competition. Nobody wants to see you puke at the wall balls. No one wants to see you lose your marbles over a sled push or pull. So like you do want to specifically start training for that. It gets into this interesting conversation of if you're going to a competition, you should enter training. If you're working out for a general health goal, then you should be working out. I do think there's a difference, and although we may use it interchangeably at points, I do think there's a difference between working out and training. Working out is for health. It's for feeling better, moving better, potentially aesthetically looking better, psychologically feeling better. But it's like it's health related reasons of why you would work out. Training isn't always healthy. It can be because you're filling your cup if you're like competitive and you like that. But like to go train burpee broad jumps, you don't need to do that if your goal is health. Because what you can do instead is, are you able to get up and down off the floor in case you were to have a fall? And then go train a broad jump to explain explosive power instead of combining these two in together in a fatigue state, right? So training for health versus training for, or working out for health versus training for a competition, they have different demands and different goals. So Ethan, like good job building your base with your general fitness routine or whatever your background is. But here's the thing, you know exactly what you're going to be tested on. And I don't know when you're signed up to do this, but now you know what's going to be coming. Now you can reverse engineer backwards to build yourself up with progressive overload to get ready for what's coming. And I think that's why this might be so popular, is because you can do that. Like if you did I don't know if they switched up obstacles on Spartan races often or things like that, but like other types of fitness related competitions, you don't know what you're going to be tested on. And then by the time that you do, you maybe have a week or two to prepare for that, but you don't know the whole competition. Going into a football game, a hockey game, uh, soccer, whatever it may be, you don't know what that game is going to demand of you. You might have to run, you might get a 100-yard touchdown on that, you may not get the ball. Like there's an idea of the general, like you're gonna from the sports science, like you're gonna move at this average speed and you're gonna have to sprint this distance and you're gonna spend this amount of time in the aerobic state, this much time in the anaerobic state. But it's pretty unpredictable once you're in the
Mm-hmm.
game itself. Like there's an average, but that average accounts for the higher end and the lower end.
Mm-hmm.
One game you might be at the higher end, another game you might be at the lower end. Like Hyrox, you know exactly what's good. There's no curveballs.
Yeah.
The only curveball is if you didn't specifically train for it and you get that feeling. And then the last point I want to make
And you
is,
get slapped in the
and you
face.
get slapped in the face. And in my brain, I'm just picturing the days of like the pizza slap
Oh.
to the face. And gosh, what a terrible thing to do with pizza, especially when it's warm.
To
Like,
get slapped in the
to get
face.
like bologna or like a cold cut, like fine. But come on, pizza.
You love pizza.
Yeah, and like the warm sauce hitting you in the face just doesn't feel good. So let's not, we'll bring back booyah. Let's
Booyah.
not bring back pizza slapping. But the last point I want to make is that this is something I learned from Chris Henshaw, one of the world's best coaches with aerobic capacity, is that we look at aerobic capacity and our thresholds as being like one thing, like my running VO2 max and my lactate threshold while doing this, but while doing a run. The body has a lactate threshold for movements,
Mhm.
for different patterns. When your legs are building up fatigue and lactate is accumulating, and no, lactate, not lactic acid, is not actually lactic acid, it is lactate.
Mhm.
So people that in the science community, they're gonna be like, yeah. People
Science,
in the fitness
science.
community without the science background, it is lactate, it is not lactic acid. The acid is, it's a myth, it is lactate. So just putting that in there.
Booyah.
Um, but as you start to work, and let's say it's a lower body based movement, the lactate is starting to accumulate under these fatigue conditions. Where does that need to go? Well, it needs to go somewhere in the body that can help to clear it. So where's that going to? Well, the best option seems to go to the upper body. And vice versa, if the arms are getting super fatigued and you're hitting that lactate threshold and lactate's accumulating, well, it seems like a good idea to get it into the bloodstream to bring down to your legs and let your legs clear it out. Well, what do you do when both are working?
Mhm.
And that is a different experience.
Ouchie.
It's ouchy, and you have to know like when can you push in this like Hyrox competition, and when do you need to stay at a steady state? Like when can you pick up? When do you need to let off? Because if you blow past your lactate threshold and that first 1,000 meters and that first of 8 different stations, you're going to have a miserable time finishing that
Mm-hmm.
because there's a pacing component, there's understanding your lactate thresholds for each particular movement. You know, wall balls, I forget the exact amount, is it 150
I'm
or
not sure. I
75
should
or
have
some,
I should have
yeah,
wrote
there's a
down.
specific amount of wall balls you need to do. You need to know how you want to attack those. You're gonna break them up into 5 rounds. You're gonna go one set fully unbroken. Are you gonna try to hang on for that one set and see what you can get to? But then how many do you have left in the tank? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to go to this and you want to compete to the best of your ability, you want to have that stuff figured out beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's the best part, because of the energy, because of the atmosphere, like that is going to push you to the next level. If you go in with a plan of like, I know this is going to be my time, and you've paced it and you understand that, that energy in there is going to help you PR.
Mm-hmm.
The other side is if you don't go in with a plan and you feel that energy and you're hyped and you go freaking full send on those first 2 parts or the first part, like sorry, that energy may just get you through,
Mm-hmm.
but like you don't want to just get through this crawling across the finish line.
Yeah.
That's not rock star.
Yeah, that's not a
Like,
rock star.
yeah.
Well, I think of any sort of fitness race or competition. I think of Tough Mudder, Spartan races. Hyrox is a great example. I even would throw like an Ironman in there. All of those things like you would want to train for, both like for your body to be familiar. Well, I would say in general for your body to be familiar with like what's about to come. And if you don't, one, I believe that like there's probably a higher risk for injury, and two, like a higher risk of getting slapped in the face,
Yeah.
as we've mentioned. And so, if Hyrox is something that you're signing up for and you're looking to compete, I guess like my next question for you, Dylan, is what do you think the training should be? Should it be 6 weeks out you start intentionally training? Like Easton's already general fitness moving. Say the competition is in September. Does he need to start now in April at the beginning of May getting ready, or can he slowly start incorporating some of these movements in, but then get into like specific training 6 weeks out or 4 weeks out? Like what do you recommend?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the level of fitness that you have. Like, what is your running mileage? What does your
Hmm.
general routine look like? Like, have you already been doing ski or rowing, farmer carry, sled pull, sled push? Are these things that you're strong, but they are new movements
Mm.
for you? But as a general rule of thumb, I like 12 weeks
Hmm.
to build up because what we know is if we spike your workload too soon, we increase the risk for injury because of just too much load at once, right? And so if we have a 12-week period, we can kind of have three mini peaks
Mm.
and then have like a little bit of a recovery time before you go to competition where you hit your main peak.
Cool.
So I like a 12-week build up, and that's what we like to use with that. Now, Easton, if you're already signed up and you're 6 weeks out from it, preparing what you can for that is still going to be helpful.
Yes,
Like by
yeah.
no means is it like, well, if you don't have the 12 weeks, then you missed the ball. Don't sign. No, anything beforehand is going to help. But we know 2 weeks is neural adaptation,
Hmm.
and then it's another like 3 to 4 weeks past that to get muscular and tendon adaptation.
Hmm.
We know that injuries, there's more and more data coming out with specifically with hamstring injuries, that hamstring injuries are not happening when athletes are fresh and feeling good. They're happening under fatigued states.
Mm.
So we need to have adaptation and we need to have it with the specific workload and parameters that you're going to be going into. So we want to make sure that you're getting that. And like 12 weeks is a great period to get that, like a 4 week cycle to start building up. And then you come down for a couple days and then you start building up to get to the next peak. And then you come down for a couple days after that next 4 weeks. So now we're at 8 weeks. And then you build it back up again going into that 12th week. And then after you hit the peak, like I would say like a week and a half beforehand is the point that you may want to go through this completely from
Mm.
start to finish, right? Because like leading up to it, you're going to be doing a minimized version of it. So like, there's Hyrox programs coming out that are available from people that are really like into that. And what I would imagine is, the parameters. What we're going to do is take a mini chunk of that workload, put it together. So instead of 8,000 meters, we're going to go 2,000 meters. And let's say the ski erg is, I don't know, let's say when you compete, it's 100 calories. We're going to put it down to 50 calories. And then the sled push is this amount of weight for this distance. Well, we're going to split that in half, but we're going to do it as a mini series
Hmm.
together and see, hey, where do you struggle? All right, let's go work that.
Hmm.
And the other thing I want to say with that too is where people can get not fully prepared is working on a wall ball without being fatigued is a lot different than working on a wall ball when you're under fatigue.
Hmm.
So like if you get to the wall balls and you struggle with them at the end, it might not be because you're bad at wall balls or don't like your performance is poor with wall balls. It might be that you're not good at that implement under fatigue.
Hmm.
So the training would look like, hey, let's get you near a lactate threshold by using non-competing muscle groups, and then have you go do the wall balls so that
Hmm.
you're working in a fatigue state. Again, I like the 12 weeks because it gives you time to kind of tweak and
Hmm.
adjust that you can then build in that like kind of dry run through. And then, right, we know that we talked about it so many times, the brain works by prediction. You're giving it certainty.
Hmm.
You're giving it certainty that you can finish. You're giving it certainty of where you can push and what your pace should be. And you're giving yourself certainty that you're not going to get hurt.
Hmm.
So to me, that like makes complete sense as to why train specifically for this.
Hmm. I love it.
Yeah.
Booyah.
Booyah.
Hyrox. Booyah. Any other thoughts on Hyrox before we hop into Hope Stories?
No, no, it's an interesting place because it's growing and it's popular and it's exciting. We're seeing a lot of CrossFit athletes go to Hyrox, and
Hmm.
some are going to Hyrox, some are competing in both. It's just an interesting concept of
Hmm.
like coming from that CrossFit world, but not quite sure anymore if that's something that we want to pursue. And then the complete opposite of this, but similarity is Hyrox, in which like, you know, CrossFit, the whole thing was like unknowing, unknowable, where
Mm-hmm.
Hyrox is very knowable, like you know exactly what you're getting. But then the community aspect and including everybody, like I'd say one is doing much better
Mm-hmm.
than the other one in that. So I don't want to get into the politics and
Yeah.
all of that stuff about it. And again, not like left or right, but the everything that's happening
Mm-hmm.
in the CrossFit space, like we'll just kind of leave that as
Yeah.
it stands right now. And hey, if you want to do Hyrox, do Hyrox. If you want to do something else, do something else. But
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want, just make sure you're prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Last thing that I'll put with that too is like so often people are talking about technique and the biomechanics. That is important for efficiency and for performance. It is not as important as you think it is for injury prevention.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do this and be able to get back into your training afterwards, or maybe this sparks you and you're like, dude, I want to keep competing in Hyrox. Like this is my thing. Like, great. Prepare your body for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to put in the steps to build capacity, be ready for that competition, and that is how you decrease injury. And then again, like we talked, like the body training the body is important. That's one third of the equation. You also need to get the true essence of your mind in place
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that your spirit's nourished, which I'm sure that this could help to nourish your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine the atmosphere wouldn't
Yeah.
if you're like interested in signing up for it and going to do it, like all these people cheering, the loud music,
Mm-hmm.
the fun, being around like-minded individuals
Mm-hmm.
that are like, yeah, I'm doing Hyrox, but what I really care about is pushing myself to see like what my capabilities are. Like being in that environment with ages ranging, you know, from young to old, like that is so motivating and
Mm-hmm.
cool and can nourish your spirit. So just make sure that you're prepping for it and that you're taking care of the body and prepping it and addressing your mind and your spirit.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Booyah!
Booyah! A boo, booyah! Can I share my hope story?
Yes.
Or would you like to go first?
No, you go ahead. I'm going to give the voice a rest and get ready for the hope
All
story.
right. Mine is very simple. As I think we mentioned a few episodes ago, that we are starting to get into spring, which is nice because the world is coming alive and our neighborhood came alive and things like that. I was really encouraged the other day. We did a hard workout that we had some movements in our garage and then we ran and then not like Hyrox by any means, but we had some movements and then we ran like, I don't know, 300 meters, came back, did more movements. So we did this workout and then after we were kind of beat up, it was a fun workout, but we decided to go for a walk. And what I was so excited about was that there was this little kid with his cute little helmet on, and I feel like he just learned how to ride a bike without the training wheels. And the dad was maybe like 10 feet behind him on a bike as well, filming.
Mhm.
And the kid, as he like rode past us as we were on our walk, he like kind of looked up and the sun was in his eyes, but he looked at us and he was like, yeah, look at me. I'm so cool. And then to see the dad like filming was really cute and Dylan
Yeah.
was like great job and started encouraging the little kid and I don't know, it's just cool. I feel like as an adult we lose the fun of just like riding bikes
Yeah.
everywhere, and I love like seeing the kids like riding bikes and stuff like that, so
Oh, it's so much fun.
yeah.
The like smile of like, look what I'm doing, look at me,
Yeah.
and like enjoying it and having fun.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope story kind of switches gears a little bit, but I'm going to tie it back into the awesome question that Easton submitted.
Ooh.
Uh, so we're around NFL draft time, and
Mm-hmm.
when we're recording this, the NFL draft has not happened yet. So my hope story is looking forward to the NFL draft.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because I love football, but I love watching the first round where they're showing like the players and their families and just seeing the excitement
Yeah.
of this individual reaching their dream.
Mm-hmm.
Like we watched Sprint too on
Mm-hmm.
Netflix, like the docuseries that followed Olympic track sprint athletes. And gosh, when like these athletes win a medal and it's the thing that they've been like working towards and they achieve it, and their reaction, like if that doesn't drive an emotional response within you,
Mm-hmm.
like we got to check your heart rate. We got to look at your
Yeah.
pulse because like it's so amazing. And
Mhm.
watching these individuals and knowing how much work they put into it and they get the phone call, and whether they're home celebrating with their families or whether they're on site, it's just so cool to see the joy of them holding up the jersey, getting to put on the hat and say like, I am a whatever team that they got drafted to.
Yeah.
I know fans are always like booing and criticizing this and that, but I'm like, just stop and just think about this individual that has put in an insane amount of effort. And it's like, gosh, like done so much to get to this point. And whether you agree with that pick or not, just enjoy that like you get to see another person reach their goals that they've been chasing. Like any kid that starts playing football when they're 4 or 5 years old, like their first dream is to go to the NFL and their second dream is to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And those are two incredible moments to witness in somebody's life. And to Easton, you know, prior to the NFL draft, there's the NFL Combine. Now, these players, they have general physical preparedness, and then they have specific training when they start to get into the season, and there's still some like base layers of strength that they're adding onto it. But when they go to the combine and they're running like a 40-yard dash or the pro agility or like pure vertical jump, like yes, they are incredible athletes. Like some would say like quote unquote freak athletes, but they're training their specific running mechanics for that test. Regardless of how fast they are on the football field, they are training. How do I accelerate from the beginning? How do I hit top speed to get the best 40-yard dash time in there? So that's an example of like, hey, you know what's coming up. We need to train specifically of this because like in football, you're not spending too much time with a sprint coach of how to do it. And if you watch the 40-yard dash of the sprint mechanics, it's very high knee driving, very front side mechanics. And when these athletes are playing in a game, like football sprinting is different than running a 100-meter dash. Like, yes, they're fast, but there is a specific training that is happening with that. So that's my hope story.
I love that hope story.
And then I want to wrap it back to like help Easton a little bit further. Like if you do have that 12-week period, I was just thinking about this as I was talking with programming because I love programming. But I look at it as like you have 12 weeks, you know the 100% of what the workload is. You can now take that in thirds. So like first 4 weeks, I'm going to do a third of the workload. The next 4 weeks, I'm going to do 2/3 of the workload. And then the next month, I'm going to do like 3 out of the 3 of the workload. Like building it up that way is another way that you could address it pretty easily.
Yeah.
Like you know the numbers, you know what you got to do. So now just go, okay, that's all of it. What's 33% of that? And now let me create a program that 4 weeks that leads up to that 33%. By week 4, I'm doing a full session of the 33% of the workload. Go to the next week, week 5, you start over again, but you're not start over. You're building upon it to now get up to 2/3 of the workload. And so that's another strategy to kind of summarize all of that.
Yeah, I love that. I'm very anti like good luck because I don't believe it's luck. So
prepare
and go crush it, Easton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, wait, and the last thing I want to say is friendly reminder that at the beginning of the episode, we said if you have any questions, you can fill it out. So this is my reminder at the end of the episode because I feel like sometimes people might forget that invitation.
Perfect.
So this is my other invitation to say, if you have any questions and you would like them to be answered by us, you can click the link in the show notes and ask us the questions there.
Thank you for all those that have submitted questions, all those that will submit questions. It's similar to like teaching, right? Like when you're an educator and you tell your students, hey, don't be afraid to ask a question because you don't think anybody else would have that question. Like if you have that question, there's somebody else in this world that has that same question. And so if you're like, oh, well, I don't want this for me, like do it for those people that are also a little hesitant to want to submit those questions.
Yeah.
So if you have that question, other people have that question. Someone's like, oh yeah, watch this. Thank you for listening. And remember, every day is not just a day to be hopeful, but an opportunity to become hope.
Booyah!
The Hope Not Know podcast is meant for educational, informational, and personal development purposes only and does not constitute any health or medical advice. If you're looking for specific advice, connect with us to work with a Hope coach. The Hope Not Know podcast shall not be liable or responsible for any loss or damage allegedly arising from any information or suggestions in this podcast.